There's everyone and their mother is trying to raise 50K. There are a handful of people trying to raise 500 million. So if you want to raise 500 million, the amount of people you're going to compete with is much lower, right? So raise more.
If I were a foreigner looking to move to Malta or looking to move to a jurisdiction which is going to favor my business, the first thing that I'll understand is what sector am I in? Second thing I'll understand is what benefits apply to my sector.
A relationship with the regulator and the ability to be able to sit down with a regulator and say, hey, these are my concerns. This is my business. Does this fly? That is a big deal. You only get that in Dubai.
I was in New York earlier this year, and I met a guy who was managing 1.2 trillion in assets. I mean, you're not going to meet anyone close to that in Malta.
Malta is a terrible place for pre-seed and the seed, right? But it's a great place to come and set up if you've got some sort of established business. AI in its current form is hyper subsidized. AI companies, the infrastructure companies, are the equivalent of drug dealers, going around giving free crack to people who are already zombies. So what happens when the dealer starts charging for the crack?
Hello, everyone. This is Odys Podcast. My name is Aneta Samkov, and today I have two special guests. First, Sean Bianco, the founder and owner of Game Changer, and Jean-Michel Azzopardi, the blockchain architect. And our topic for today is the Maltese startup economy. Thank you so much, guys, for coming.
Thank you for having us.
So you're both Maltese, and you both build businesses here. Can you tell us, can you paint a little picture of your businesses? Like, what is the team size, what you do, how long did it take you to start the business so that it's serious?
Yeah, sure. So we started the business in 2020. We actually started as a tech company. I'm a cash flow guy, so I believe in cash flow as early as possible. And yeah, I mean, we scaled up extremely fast. So Malta is an amazing environment because the people that you meet over here, the networking opportunities are second to none. So I've gone to many countries. I've been to many conferences. I've had people to Malta that I've hosted from all of these different areas and all of these different networks that I've built. But there seems to be something special about Malta, especially for a startup. So seems to have a lot of different people in the same country from a lot of different sectors that come together. Now, from my side, in terms of startup, in terms of how long it took us to get there, I would say that first 6 months we failed miserably. We scaled very, very fast to a team of 50 plus.
After the 6 months of failure.
After the 6 months of failure, then we found something which worked. We hired our first employees by the end of the year.
Wow.
The year after, I think we scaled to like 15 or 20. The year after that, up to 50. And yeah, and in terms of, let's say, where we are right now, obviously 2023 hit. Everything changed in terms of SEO, in terms of regulation. Also, my industry was the first to be impacted by that. So I work in SEO. SEO, a large part of it is content. So there are a lot of like optimizations which we can make over there. As a result, now we're doing better than we ever did before with like less than half the staff. Yeah.
And how about you, Jean-Michel?
Pressure makes diamonds, right? That's the saying. So how about me? So the simple way to understand me is I'm a blockchain architect. That's the first thing I do, and mainly it involves also the simple explanation is I help enterprises explore the blockchain world, and I do it in a very different way. So I only work with one client, and I say no to 99% of projects out there. The reason is 4 in 5 startups fail, 99% of crypto projects are scams. So the bar to success is super high and the margin is super slim, right? So I'm very picky about the projects I work on. I focus, execute, and deliver. And the blockchain world in itself is usually filled with a bunch of nerds. I'm kind of one of them, and sometimes we're guilty of making things a little too technically complex for no reason. And it just creates a ridiculous amount of ambiguity in the industry, which is why people thought images were worth 20 million 6 years ago. And then we realized, NFTs are now worth nothing. So I sort of help clarify that the bullshit. I help enterprises sift through the bullshit. I think that's a simple explanation. That's I think the first thing I do. Second thing I do is I run a community of 380 now individuals in the crypto, iGaming, and fintech world. It's 80% CXOs.
After the recent events in Dubai, Malta came into the radar of many investors who are looking for the new place. Can you tell us what it actually costs to build business in Malta today?
Depends on the business, right?
Yeah, I mean, like incorporating a business is extremely cheap. I think the main cost that investors are looking at is more the cost of tax implications, more than anything else. So building a business is very easy in Malta in terms of incorporating it, setting up your M&As, registering it on the MBR, running your management accounts, your yearly audits. So it's actually not that expensive. I mean, if I were a foreigner looking to move to Malta or looking to move to a jurisdiction which is going to favor my business, the first thing that I'll understand is what sector am I in? Second thing I'll understand is what benefits apply to my sector, because each and every country has its own. I mean, Portugal has its own range of benefits for startups. Cyprus does also. Certain parts of Italy also.
Each country has its USP, right? Like
each country has its USP. I think Malta, one of the benefits is that pretty much everyone over here speaks English. You know, that might sound a bit silly, but if you go to Portugal, Spain, or another country, it's not the case. There's a high density of businessmen and business knowledge in the country also, and a good pool of talent depending on the sector that you're in. There are some sectors where you could come over here and it just won't be relevant to you at all. So I think like the correct question is like, what sector, what potential benefits are there in terms of incentives and also in terms of tax schemes, and what people do you need to operate your business, right?
And how easy is it to get set up, right? Like Sean said, if you're, opening a tire factory, probably Malta is not the place you want to do it. There's better places in Europe, right? But Malta does sit at a particular impasse with specific industries like fintech, like crypto, like iGaming, like SEO. Those are in terms of, let's say, digital and financial sectors. Those are, I'd say, the low-hanging fruit, right? Funds as well as another one now. So we have there's a lot of things going for the country in terms of regulated business. And for a couple of reasons. Tax is one of them. 300 days of sunshine is another. But more importantly, a relationship with the regulator and the ability to be able to sit down with a regulator and say, hey, these are my concerns. This is my business. Does this fly? That is a big deal. You only get that in Dubai and maybe Abu Dhabi. You don't get that like anywhere else.
Yes.
Maybe Isle of Man as well would be another one. But if you're opening a licensed business, you've got at least minimum €1 million capital outlay, at least. So if you're deploying €1 million, you want to make sure that it's going to be safe, that nothing's going to happen to it, that things are going to go as planned. So the ability to come sit down with a regulator and say, hey man, does this work? Before you've gone through the investment is a massive USP, and that applies, I think, in gaming, as well as financial services, as well as crypto. So yeah.
What's the biggest myth about Malta's startup scene that outsiders believe in?
A bit difficult of a question, right? Because
we don't have the outsider perspective.
We don't have the outsider. Like, how do you see Malta from as an outsider?
Exactly.
What do you think the biggest, let's say, not myth, what's the biggest promise that Malta has to offer you?
That is great networking space.
That I can agree with.
Sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that it's easy to raise money here.
That's not true.
And that's not true. Why?
No. Look, we live in Europe. Europe is highly and over-regulated. It doesn't have access to the same kind of capital that a country like the United States has. When you're talking to investors over here also, or people with money in general, myself included, we have a different mindset to as a VC in the United States would. I mean, I'm not going to mention names, but I was in New York earlier this year, and I met a guy who was managing 1.2 trillion in assets. I mean, you're not going to meet anyone close to that in Malta. Forget it. So if you're trying to build something which is going to change the game, and people who are used to investing money in a way that is going to that's going to make change, not just make a buck. Yeah, I mean, Maltese investors, or rather investors in Europe, they have the same kind of mindset which I do, I would say, which is the cash flow mindset, right? A lot of them, or the value add mindset to my business, right? While if you're dealing with investors in the United States, which I would say is like the Roman Empire of nowadays, that's where the electricity is. That's where the cash flow is. That's where people are ready to make investments, and they're ready to not go for a business which is going to go from 1 million of investment to 10 million in return in 3 years, but they want to invest 1 billion and they want to make trillions in the next 5 years.
So I agree almost entirely with the particular caveat, right? So, and this, I guess, harks back to a point you both mentioned earlier, which is Malta is fantastic for networking. So the propensity of meeting an individual that manages 1.2 trillion will, of course, not be the same as the Bay Area, right? But it's not that far-fetched either, right? There's a lot of interesting people that come to Malta and are traveling in and out of Malta. So there is my sort of point of contention, disagreement. But to Sean's point, it is a very different mindset, right? So Europe, and it's important to understand where it comes from. So as Sean said, in not too many words, Europe would regulate breathing if they could. Right? So America innovates and Europe regulates.
But Malta has its own seed investment scheme, like startup financing, the new 10 million government VC fund. Have either of you actually used it, or founders who use them successfully?
Look, I've not followed the most recent scheme. I know the MDIA have launched something interesting around deep tech, so like high-tech computing, VR, AR, that sort of stuff. I think we're talking about the same fund, quite possibly. But what I can tell you is, in the past, my experiences definitely haven't been good. I think I've been applying for startup funding with Malta Enterprise since I had hair, and as you can see,
Not going too well.
It's not going too well, exactly. So I was about 20 the first time I applied, and I'm 13, I think 6 now. So I've been through it a few different times, and just to lay out the problems here, okay? So there's usually a ramp of 6 to 8 months. They'll tell you it's never the case, but first rule of planning is nothing ever goes to plan, and that's in terms of the individuals I've spoken to who've benefited from such initiatives. That's always been the case, right? So 6 to 8 months in, let's say you're doing an AI startup, 6 to 8 months, the landscape changes. Whatever the hell you've created in 6 to 8 months, the window is gone.
Yeah.
So tell me how this startup funding is ever going to work. That's the first problem. The other problems, many of the initiatives are tied to tax credits, which if you're a founder, okay, cool, it helps your investor, doesn't really help you.
And to your point, like almost from a vocational point of view, I'm actually setting up an info product which teaches people in Europe how to go from having skills to having a business and generating their own income. It's completely for free. I'll be releasing it later this year. I have no motivation but other than to help people do what I did and learn from the mistakes that I made, and not take 3 or 4 years to get to where I could have, and I currently do within 3 to 4 months.
So where does serious early stage capital actually come from in Malta?
Where does serious early stage capital actually come from?
Yes.
So 2 sources or 3 sources. Government, let's call them envoys. So trade missions and that sort of stuff. The government is to their merit quite active in the sort of trade mission space. The second would be industry-specific law firms of the country. So we have, I think, fantastic legal infrastructure in particular industries like fintech, like crypto, like iGaming, that go to a lot of conferences around the world. You know, hey man, how's it going? Hi, I'm from Malta. I heard about Malta, right? So that's the other part. And I think the third one is, I guess, just entrepreneurs, brokers, and introducers. And those are, I think, the three sources.
Yeah. How about the angel investors? How do you find them? And what do they want in return? Who are they?
So, angel investors. Angel investors in Malta.
Do they exist?
They exist, right?
They're the kind that want 50% of your business for 30K.
Correct. That is, they, in most cases, unfortunately, and I mean, some of them are friends of mine. So there's, it's nothing personal. It's just a question of culture, you know. Like there's angel investors in Malta is more similar to vulture capital in the US, not venture, vulture.
Vulture,
right?
yes.
So it's typically involves a deal like Sean mentioned. You know, we'll give you 50K for half your business, and then what's the incentive for the founder to work on it, and you've just lost 50K. So okay, but there are a handful of good ones. But when I say a handful, you could probably literally count them on one hand.
Really?
In at least let's call them industry-specific ones, because it's a risk thing. It's a risk thing. People in Europe don't like to risk, you know. And seed. If you're after a business angel, you're seed or pre-seed, which means you either have an idea or someone has given you 10K to go and explore this idea, you know. So at that stage, there's so much risk.
But there are some of the wealthiest people, especially when it comes to iGaming and other operators. So where is that money going?
I mean, look, there are wealthy people in Europe, then there are wealthy people in the States. There are wealthy people everywhere. The question is, once you have made that money, then how do you invest it? And there are a few who really know how to invest it, who really know how to build good partnerships, who know how to invest in the right projects, that they build up fantastic groups. Normally, those groups which are built up kind of all focus around the group rather than the individual company. So it's always a added benefit towards the group of companies which they operate under. So in itself, which also ends up creating a bubble where companies which are created for the group, right? So, and you see this over and over in the iGaming industry. So I would start off with a casino, then I would set up an affiliate, then I would set up a game provider, then I would set up a payments gateway, and then I would combine all of that together. I'd have my different business partners in other areas, but ultimately it's still held under the group. It's still held for that specific group.
Okay, and just after that, once you've built all that, then you build a fund. Okay, so think about how many companies that you can think of in Malta that have gone through this process to build the scale, to have enough money that say, okay, we have 20 million cash, we don't know how we're going to deploy it, let's create a fund, you know, to that exact process. And that's the reason why there's such little capital here.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, are there rich people in the industry? For sure.
Absolutely.
Is there a flow of money? For sure. I'm a cash flow guy myself. So when it comes to accessing capital, I'm not trying to build the next generation's internet, right? Or currency. I'm looking into opportunities whereby I can invest money today and within 3 to 4 months start seeing a return. So my mentality is completely different to the point where I literally don't look for these people. So I'm not involved in this kind of community. Not to say that I don't see that they have value. For sure, they have value. But I think also when you're dealing with a business, one of the most important questions you need to ask yourself is, who sits on my cap table? You know, because once, you know,
absolutely,
and you know, once you have a business and there's a cap table, then that's essentially marriage, right? So you're going to most likely see these people more than your friends. You're going to see them potentially more than your wife or your husband, if you're, you know. So it's a really hard decision, which is extremely important to take. And I would say, regardless of whether you're setting up a business and you're doing it from a cash flow perspective, which is the way that I do it, You find something, you build it, you sell it before you completely build it, to understand if there's an incentive, to see if people are actually going to buy it, to build something for the people. You release it, it's successful on day one. I've done this twice this year, and we went from 0 to 6 figures on both of those products with one of them within 1 hour.
Wow.
You know, with one of them within 1 hour. Okay, so like I think you can raise your own money, right? You just need to tap into human psychology and find ways to solve problems. But I think whether you're doing this my way or you're doing it by raising money, the most important thing is, who do you speak to on a daily basis?
For sure.
That's the most important thing.
For sure.
Who sits at your director's table? Who sits at the cap table? Who's enabling you? Who's disabling you? Like, the only stress that you have is not how to make money or how to spend the money which you've raised. In my opinion, the only stress that you ever really have are the 5 people you speak to most often, right?
And there are so many foreigners coming here. I mean, Ireland is small, right? The local population is small, so the amount of people coming in from outside like really forms a big percentage of the group. Do you feel like there is like a two-tier ecosystem forming of expats versus locals? What's your take on that?
On the entrepreneurship side, let's say, I'd say absolutely, actually.
Oh, really?
It's
Wow.
a question of tax at the end of the day, no?
I mean, look, when you're a Maltese person running a business in Malta and your competitors are on beneficial tax rates and you're not, as a Maltese person working in your country within the same line of business, it creates an unfair advantage towards the Maltese entrepreneur.
For sure.
So, I mean, I'm not sure if the cameras can pick up this beautiful view behind us, right? But you're going to see some lovely browns and greens because of the time of the year, but you're also going to see a lot of whites and grays, and that's all of the building, right, in Malta. And that's because a large part of the Maltese economy is driven by building, right? There's no real incentive for people to stop investing in property and start investing in tech, start investing in startups, and start taking their money out of stone and investing it into something which is more scalable, right? So yes, you can say that there are 2 tiers, where there are the foreigners who come into the country and obviously pay way better tax rates, while then there are the locals who do online businesses which compete in the exact same markets with foreign investors who come into Malta that pay the local tax rate and don't benefit from that at all. And there are a couple of pitfalls over there which maybe I can highlight, which is that at the end of the day, it locks up a lot of the capital in Malta to what's to stone instead of to technology.
Low risk.
Low risk. That's number one. While if you were to say, hey, look, if you were to take your finances and what you've raised and you were to invest it into, as an example, a social media platform company or something like that, some kind of innovative, some new innovative business which Malta wants to push to put us in center stage on the European level and potentially even the global level, will tax you at a lower rate than if you were to, as an example, invest your money into a restaurant, into a hotel, into a block of apartments. And that could unlock a lot of capital. That could unlock a lot of that could unlock a lot of hunger also. But that's not the way that things are running right now. And it puts a little bit of pressure on the Maltese entrepreneur because, you know, I mean, I don't really care that much about money. I just care about impact. And for me, you know, when I start seeing that there's money sitting down, obviously it makes you think like, okay, now I need to invest it because I need to create assets and I need to create value. If I was going to pay the lower tax rate, I would think, okay, let me see how I can over time come up with a good product which I could offer people. And you can make mistakes, right? Because you care about impact, you care about market value, and you might end up building something literally for the case, because you don't care about money, you care about impact, and you just need to put that money to work rather than not put that money to work and end up in a scenario which your competitors are in, where they pay way lower tax rates, but they can decide what to do with that money later on when it's advantageous to them.
Yes. So how do you actually raise money successfully?
How do you raise money successfully? You need to be a little crazy. I think definitely a little crazy, especially to think that you want to raise a serious amount of money in a very small place. But I think this before the how. I think let's talk about the what happens if you manage to enable that ecosystem here. Which is like Malta is a really small country.
There's a lot of smart
really
people.
tiny population that historically had nothing, and we created something from nothing, right? And like Sean said, there's a lot of smart people, and some are extremely driven. So I think if the right sort of concoction can come together, which to me is the Dubai model, right? The Dubai model is, there is an issue. You go to the minister, or the minister comes to you and he says, "Hey, what do I have to do to get my my investment level up by 10 or 20 times?" Just write it down on a piece of paper. And there's people in that office chasing the entrepreneurs for the answer because they want to do better. Right?
That's exactly how Dubai did it.
That's exactly how Dubai did it. They were interested. They went forward. They got feedback from the community. When the crypto with the crypto initiative here, I mean, if they had done that, I think it would have been a lot of a smoother ramp. But how do you raise money? Going back to the original question, you make a lot of mistakes along the way. Is a simple answer. So first time I raised money, I was 21, still had hair, and raised it from the Times of Malta, which is the biggest news site here. It's like 25K, something small. And I spent to raise that. I said, I have this idea. The Times are going to be my only partner because I have a new idea. They're the biggest site in Malta. If I leverage of their traffic, I should win, right? So I cold called. I called a couple of friends, got the number of the director, cold called the director and said, "Hi, Adrian, we've never met before. I'm Jean-Michel. I have this idea. I want to pitch you. Do you think I can buy you a coffee sometime?" And obviously, in a much less confident voice,
Yes.
And, I did, and we sat down, and that negotiation took, I think, a year and a half.
Wow, a really long time.
And I lost my first mover advantage. And these are one of the issues you learn along the way. One of the mistakes you make and the things you learn along the way. Something else I learned along the way is I kept majority of the company, but board decisions were agreed to be decided by simple majority. I had one board seat. My investors had 2 board seats. And at 21, I quickly learned what happens when you give control of a startup to a dinosaur. It dies, it just dies. So there's a common story like along the way. I think this was the second startup I raised for, coincidentally. So I raised 2.2 for the startup out of some investors in the Netherlands who basically went under post FTX after spending 1.5. But it's kind of a similar story. So it's a question of grit and making your own luck at the end of the day. So I was invited by a blockchain company in 2017 to Singapore. And I was invited to be a country manager. And they said, "Hey, come to Singapore, we'll pay all your flights." And I said, "Yeah, but I'm looking at this white paper. It looks like bullshit. Like, I want to speak to C-level." They're like, "Fly up, you'll meet them there. You can ask whatever questions you want." I'm like, "Okay, sure. Let's see what happens." So I get to Singapore, I get there, and I realize within like an hour that this thing is a total scam. And I'm like, "Screw you guys, go to hell. I'm out. Have a nice day." Right? So I'm in Singapore for like 4 or 5 days.
Yeah.
Like scrolling through Facebook, and I was scrolling through, and there was a guy who was a friend of a friend, and I clicked add friend, and he accepted, and I said, "Hey, you're in Singapore. What's up? Do you want to go meet and have a coffee?" And we met, and long story short, 6 months later, we had raised a couple of million.
Wow.
So it's usually just a story of a mix of grit and serendipity.
What are the typical mistakes founder founders make when they're trying to raise money?
First, number one, they raise too little.
Oh.
Number one, and the reason's kind of simple. So there's everyone and their mother is trying to raise 50K. There are a handful of people trying to raise 500 million. So if you want to raise 500 million, the amount of people you're going to compete with is much lower, right? So number one, raise more. And it's always better to have a bit more money and so you can underpromise and overdeliver than not have enough money and then you're stuck there crucified with no options, right?
Yes.
So that's, I think, the biggest mistake. The second mistake is choosing, like Sean said earlier, right? Choosing the wrong investors. Okay, so investors it's a marriage, you know? And if money is not smart, it's dumb. Dumb money is always a bad idea. Someone just writing you a check, run 1,000,000 miles. Run 1,000,000 miles. And because they're going to want to know what's happening with their money, all they care about is the money at the end of the day. There needs to be parallel incentive that one, reduces their risk, and two, maximizes their possibility for return. That's why funds are created in the way Sean described earlier, right? You start with the one company, go to the next, you start building parallel. Then you have, each time you build, you're de-risking. Every company you create is de-risked. That's why the fund, at the end of it, you have a customer base, and you have resources, and you have operations, you have infrastructure, processes, right? So it's like marriage, man. Marry the right person, you know? Marry the right person.
How do you screen them?
The same way I screen most of my business partners. Usually I take them out to lunch and I try to create as many awkward situations than unforeseen situations as possible to gauge their reaction as early as I can. So I know what these people are made of, I know what their metal is like, and when I'm in the trenches with them, I know what kind of person is fighting next to me, if I even decide to be in the trenches.
So what I tend to do is, to your point also, I've adopted a model where when it comes time to be business partners with someone, I take more of a collaborative approach first, before I were to invest money or before I were to incorporate a new company, where we do something together. And I mean, Jean knows this, but over the past 2 years, there are 4 businesses, out of which one of them I've only decided to move forwards with. The other 3 I pulled out. So, you know, it's, and if I had just gone into those businesses literally based on how I felt at the time, what I knew at that point in time, and what the vision was, what I believe people could deliver. At the end of the day, once you sign a paper, you sign a paper. So people really get, and you're in that marriage, so people get really hyper obsessed with, let's do the M&As, let's do this, let's make sure that I get this percentage and that person gets that percentage. Show your freaking value. Show your value. Show me your value. I'll demonstrate my value to you. If there's value that can be had from this relationship, then let's move forwards. Let's build something together. Exactly. And if you are not able to demonstrate the value which you promise, or I am not able to demonstrate the value that I promised, not maybe because we're bad people, not maybe because we are not capable of doing this, but maybe just because we don't have time.
Yes, absolutely. No, value is, value is probably the most important thing, I think, to vet. I think, like, outside of that, it's a question of culture. It's a question of, like, metal. It's like, think about it like this, you know. If you go and buy a used car, you pay in the UK, you pay the AA £100 for a 250-point check. They check 250 things on a 5,000 euro old Fiat, you know? Yeah. If you're going to take money from an investor or do business with a partner, do your fucking due diligence, you know? That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, and you'd be surprised that was some of the most, well, for me, the most important thing in business is relationship first. Relationship first. Because people that you do business with are always going to make your life, or you're either going to elevate your life or pull you down. And I've been in business with people who have elevated my life, and I've been in business that have with people that have pulled me down. And I have wasted years of my life with bad business partners that have pulled me down. And I think that is the biggest lesson that anyone can take to this. And that's why I take this approach, you know. Let's see how we can collaborate together. Let's build value together. Let's see how we perform with each other over a long period of time, minimum 6 months. then let's talk after we've tested something out, after there are already results, after we already see how we are with people, because talk is cheap.
Talk's
You
cheap.
know,
Yes, yes.
talk is
Absolutely.
and and there are people out there who are comedians. There are people out there who will make you feel good. Maybe you're that comedian also to some extent, and you're trying to show a better version of yourself than you actually are, because you really see that there's a good opportunity out there. So, I would say don't rush into business with either an investor or with a business partner.
With a business partner. I think that's probably the most important thing about raising funds. Choose the right co-founder.
Yeah.
Because the wrong one will take your kids and half your wealth.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, yes,
You understand?
yes.
So I would say focus on who you do business with. That's the most important thing, because long term, the only thing which is going to impact your capability to increase or decrease your value are the people who are trying to either help you up or pull you
Put you
down.
down.
And you have been on the other side, right? Investing into some of the companies.
Yes.
Correct? What do you look into when you screen a potential company for an
So
investment?
I never ever invest anywhere unless I go down this path. So I want to see how I'm going to work with the individual. I don't like doing things without being able to have an influence. So if I just want to invest in a company, I just put my money in the S&P 500 and leave it go, right? So if I am going to invest in someone, I'm not investing my money, I'm investing my knowledge, I'm investing my time, I'm investing my relationships, I'm investing my network, and I'm investing into a long-term future where I can have an impact. If I can't have an impact in a business, I don't care.
Smart money
Mhm.
versus dumb money. Who
Yes.
just wants to write the check.
Absolutely.
It depends on the industry, right? So,
Mhm.
like we said earlier, Malta has its own USPs in specific industries. So, fintech, iGaming, crypto. There are benefits, In crypto, we're the blockchain island. In fintech, we have our own little mark on the industry. And in gaming, I mean, let's face it, practically every online casino who's worth its salt has some sort of operation here. So if you're in those industries, yes, you have an advantage. And the reason's kind of simple, right? Which is the infrastructure is here, it's all around you. So like we were saying earlier, if you wanted to build a casino, whatever it is you want, game providers, payment solutions, banking, RG solutions, compliance solutions, everything is here and you have options, which, for example, if I wanted to buy a really high-end monitor, I have one option, which is scan, I can't go anywhere else, so that's the sort of paradigm shift. Because we're so small, we had to specialize. So, it's given us an unfair advantage, I suppose. Then again, it usually boils down to where the investor is from, right?
Mhm.
So,
I mean,
I'm trying to figure out what
it's kind of funny. It's kind of funny because I had someone recently who's like, "Oh my God, I came to Malta. Now I have to open up an office here because I was here
Yes.
for either a conference or just a week or whatever. And like now I've done more business and I've opened more doors than I did 6 months from my home base.
Wow.
So like there needs to be like a base over here. So I don't know if it's going to be the points to invest in someone. I think an investor will go back to the initial points which we had at the beginning.
Mhm.
So what's the advantage from a sector perspective? What's the advantage from a tax perspective? What's the advantage from a customer perspective? What's the advantage from an access perspective? What's the advantage to a resource perspective? So it's exactly what he's saying, goes back to our very, very first point. Now, if you have an investor where all of those things align, then yes, there's an advantage to someone investing into Malta. Now, where could there be a disadvantage at saying that you're based in Malta? I mean, I'm sure there are many, but I just can't think of them right now. But like if you're, let's say, operating in the States, right? I know that, the policy of the government in the States right now is America first, America built, America produced. So I would say that maybe if you're going to work within the United States and that's going to be your market, maybe it would be a disadvantage to be based in anywhere outside of the States. And I do have a friend who has been going to the States recently quite a lot to do business in the States. And I mean, the feedback that this guy gave me was just like, when I came back to Europe, everything just slowed down. There was no progress anymore. So I have to move there. I'm like, not the worst situation in the world, right? So no, I can't really think of any particular disadvantage.
No, there definitely are disadvantages. So the talent pool is super small. Okay, we are only 500,000 people at the end of the day. So if you want to hire somebody with really specific knowledge set, which in financial services or crypto is extremely common, there's a handful of people. That's going to be a problem, And time zone wise, if you wanted, like, I always run my teams fully remote. So we're in like 6 time zones at the moment. It's not exactly ideal being here, So those are the disadvantages. Plus traffic is terrible. So, and it's a thing. If you're running a business here, it's a thing,
You have to take it into account.
Your team are gonna come up with all sorts of reasons why they didn't make it to work on time, for example, or why something didn't get delivered. And these things happen, right? There is also if you could look at it as a disadvantage, I mean, depending, right? But it's a culture thing at the end of the day. So, for example, we met a couple of days ago, We shook hands, we liked each other. We're here now a couple of days later and we're filming a little podcast here, right? You can't do that in every country in the world at the end of the day. Some cultures are just like, okay, hi Aneta, nice to meet you, And if after 6 months you're still friends, maybe you'll get that podcast invitation, So that some people love that, some people hate that.
Yes.
So, it could be advantage, could be disadvantage.
Yes. When the money comes here from wealthier locations, like from Dubai and other sources, do you think it lifts the local founder economy, or does it make things more expensive, like rent, office space?
So I can't really talk too much about what it does because I'm for the founders, because as I said, I avoid investment like the plague. So I'm more of a cash flow kind of person. But when it comes to, if you look at Malta, so it's a very simple cross-section. If you look at Malta, when we were kids versus Malta today, rents have blown through the roof. The value of property has blown through the roof. Not everyone on the island is exposed to the iGaming, fintech, crypto sector. Actually, it's a very small facet of the population, which is the larger population are not progressing to the same rate of liquidity that, people who are tapped into this sector, these sectors are. This obviously does create a huge disparity to people who are in iGaming, people who are in crypto who are in finance, people who are in private aviation and yachting and all of these different industries, which are all industries which are attracting huge wealth into the country. And it's creating a little bit of disparity also between what's the real Malta versus the small percentage of Malta. So I would say that, yes, we have seen the impact significantly of wealth coming into Malta. So even though I might complain about the tax rate being lower for my competitors than they are for me, the fact that I have my competitors in my country and I'm able to learn from them and they're able to learn from me and we're able to network together means that I'm able to add more value to the marketplace. For sure. So ultimately, what's happening is that there's an opportunity which the governments of Malta over many generations have created, which have created a tap of value.
Trickle-down opportunity. Which if you get involved into that sphere and you can add value, then you can break out of that, let's say, disparity. But I mean, no, it's a terrible situation overall for people who are not in that. To Sean's point, I mean, look, Malta is a terrible place for pre-seed and the seed, right? But it's a great place to come and set up if you've got some sort of established business, right? And it's like Sean said, the trickle-down opportunity is what ends up happening. And, like opportunity knocks for everyone. You just need to be there listening and take action at the end of the day. So there's a lot of, like, if your company fits that profile, if you have an established business already, you have your investors, Malta will probably be very, very good to you, But if not, if you're a Maltese entrepreneur, it's crawl and pull yourself out of Death Valley, right?
Yeah.
No, but like it's funny, but it's true because like, look, now it's changed, so I can't say how it is nowadays. But when I was younger, it was really difficult.
We're old enough to say when I was younger. Oh my God!
Yeah, it's my birthday, so I just remind you. But like, no, when I was younger, and to your point, we're old. It wasn't as easy as it is today to get involved in a business. Like I've seen people, okay, who started working with my company, who grew extremely fast, who ended up on salaries that's normally you wouldn't even dream of in a very short period of time. Some stuck with me till today. Some moved elsewhere. They're doing all fantastically well and growing. And when I was younger, that was not the case.
No, there was no possibility.
You would not just come out of university or even pre-university. So like it's at the stage right now where if you have skills and you're an intern, someone will find something for something for you to do. Okay, it's that good right now in Malta. In my days, it wasn't like that. So can I say that yes, there is a sector of the community which is being impacted negatively by higher prices and so forth? Yes, but at the same point in time, you can't put your hands on your eyes like this and cover yourself from the opportunity, cover your eyes from the opportunity
all around
which everyone has.
So which sectors do you see exploding in Malta next and why? Where is the opportunity? AI, fintech, blockchain?
The usual suspects, fintech, iGaming, and crypto are here to stay. I mean, fintech is probably the one that's has the biggest spotlight on it at the moment, right? And there's a couple of reasons for that. Mostly, we were when I say we, I mean the country had the foresight to, I guess, regulate in the direction that Europe was going many years before it decided to go there, at least on the crypto side.
Yes,
and it set us up to be really well positioned now for the changes with PSD3 and the ECB updates, Mika, which is coming at the end of this month. But the point is, Malta created this, this MICA regulation was basically built on the Maltese VFA framework, which came 7 years earlier. So, we've been waiting for this moment like forever. So as I understand, there are just shy of 100 financial applications in process at the moment. So applications for financial institutions, 100. Okay? That's probably more than anywhere else in Europe.
Wow.
It might not sound like much, but think about 100 banks opening up at the same time in one place. It's nuts, So financial services is going to be interesting. Crypto is definitely going to be interesting. Gaming will always be a pillar, I think, of the economy. The cross-reference between financial services and fintech creates a lot of interesting opportunities, specifically for tokenization in the fintech world, which is another one of the reasons that this perfect storm is coming together. But I think the Maltese economy has a very strong outlook ahead of it,
I mean, I look at things from a different perspective, so I don't look at like what the country is providing in terms of the infrastructure and licensing and regulation, which Jean does. Like I said, I'm a cash flow guy. All I care about is you invest your time today. Within 3 months, you're rich, right? So like that's where I position myself, and it's more of a global thing rather than a local thing. I mean, look, everyone has AI in their product. Everyone is pardon my French, an AI BSer. Okay? It's like everyone's raising money by having AI in their product. Everyone's saying that their product is AI, while realistically it's just a skin which hooks up to an API.
ChatGPT is finally having its NFT moment. I'm so happy.
Yeah. So
we just did episode with Mark exactly on that topic.
Yeah.
We will link it here. Yeah.
So like everyone is an AI expert. Everyone, like I believe that right now what you need to focus on is value. AI, if used correctly, and actually you told me this a long time ago and it stayed in my mind, which was that AI is only used correctly by maybe 5% of the people who actually implement it. There's a very small cohort of people who actually implement AI and get value out of it and are able to achieve scale. And those people who do are the ones who really succeed. So I believe that not to buy into the AI con artist hype, but to buy into the value that you can provide to a business by understanding their processes, hyper niching down. So all of these sectors which are coming into Malta, when you're talking about the compliance burdens, when you're talking about the risk, the personnel, when you're talking about the processes in the companies, just talking about banking as one of those, become a hyper expert on those sectors. Do it for free. Understand how you can optimize, and then offer that as a service, and a service which can scale. So I think that right now, where people have to stop focusing is the technology. It doesn't matter if it's today AI, it doesn't, or if it's called AI today, if it's called agentic tomorrow. It doesn't matter if it's an orchestration layer, agents.
Yeah.
Cut all of the BS. Cut all of the crap which you're trying to sell to people to just sell them on hype. Focus on value. Integrate AI into solving those problems and actually learn it and understand how to actually get value out of it in a way which is scalable. And there's never been a better time to become an expert at offering value to people at scale. Focus on that, niche down, find the problems that people have, try and understand whether the total addressable market is big enough, or if the value you can offer is large enough, therefore justifying the prices that you're going to need to make a return on your investment. Focusing on that, whether it's in Malta, whether it's abroad, whether it's in finance, whether it's in gaming, whatever it's in, focusing on that, add value, and the market will add value back.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think there's sort of two pillars on AI sort of worth touching upon, right?
Sorry, I'm just really fed up of meeting people saying they're AI experts.
Yes, everyone is an AI expert.
Especially when they were blockchain experts 4 years ago. And
and especially when an update came out 2 weeks ago, which everyone had to learn, and now everyone's at the same level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So most people in AI take the same approach that people in the blockchain industry took for the longest time, which is they focus on the what, not on the why. Every business has a what, why, how.
Yes.
Okay. But the why should always be the first priority. Okay. What's the problem you're solving? Because a business exists to solve a problem. If you're focusing on the what, then you are a solution looking for a problem. And that's what's happening with AI at the moment. That is, I think, the first thing worth noting. The second thing worth noting is that AI in its current form is hyper subsidized. Okay, to the extent where, Microsoft Uber blew through 400 million right in the last 5 months because the API version of ChatGPT, Claude, and whatever is charged at normal rates. Everything else is not, right? So every other user is not. So the point is that AI companies, the infrastructure companies, are the equivalent of drug dealers, going around giving free crack to people who are already zombies. And the people are now becoming more zombie-like, because they don't have to have any sort of cognitive function. They can just rely on what the AI says.
Yes.
And you have much more garbage flowing in and much more garbage flowing out, right?
Yes.
And if you combine these two, so one, more garbage flowing in and more flowing out. But two, the user isn't paying for the crack. So what happens when the dealer starts charging for the crack?
Yeah.
Right. That's so. If you combine that with the previous point about people are just focusing on the what, not the why, that I think summarizes the AI bubble as it's forming.
Yes. So there's a storm coming.
It looks like it.
It looks like it. So what's the bet you're each making on Malta right now that other people don't see?
Look, I love Malta. I grew up here. Very patriotic. I think that we have a beautiful island, very intelligent people. I believe that we have the capability to educate the workforce better. Like my bet right now is that the younger people in Malta are going to find better education than the system that has been created all over the world. So I'm seeing more people creating info products, more people teaching other people how to do drop shipping, teaching people how to do so. Like, so my stepson is somewhat of a serial entrepreneur at this stage, and he's only 16. And he asked me the other day, he's like, why should I learn from my teacher? When I look into the car park and every car that I see is a car which I can afford right now from things that I'm doing.
Kid with a brain.
Yeah. So I see that the newer generation, although I have a lot of issues with them, don't get me wrong. I think my bet is that the mentality of Maltese people is that they're willing to learn, and the local island is, I see a lot of foreigners who are moving to Malta, who are bringing up families over here, who are having beautiful lives, who are also integrating. There's no such thing as foreigner or Maltese when you grow up together. You are Maltese when you grew up on the island. And I believe that my bet is that people are going to become way more entrepreneurial at a way younger age. And that's going to create a new movement, which is going to push people into creating value, not only within the island, which is what we need, but also globally. So I have a very bright outlook on Malta. My outlook is not based on any kind of framework or licensing or so forth. A country is its people. A country is its people, and the institutions promise to help the people. I think that on all sides, there's the promise from the institutions to help the people. I think that the education system, quite frankly, is broken, but I see that there are a few people out there who are really trying hard to offer value to the market and to get people onto the entrepreneurial train.
I think you mentioned a really good point, right? Which is the willingness to help people. I think that's sort of part of the whole Mediterranean vibe, which you might not see in other parts of Europe. But and if you couple that with the idea that you're Maltese, you're born in this tiny little island. It's a nothing burger, compared to the rest of the world. So you're a star in the galaxy, right? But if you couple that with the propensity for young entrepreneurs, and I'm telling you, we have some really smart people here. It's weird that there's so many smart local, not only smart people in general, just smart locals in such a small space. That with the right attitude, my bet is that we will have a Maltese unicorn in the next decade. Let's say my hope.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for sharing all of your experiences of having businesses in Malta. This
Thank you
is
for having
a
us.
very, very good discussion. And if you enjoyed it as much as I did, follow Jean-Michel, follow Sean on LinkedIn. Don't hesitate to contact them or call for investment tips.
Just please don't sell me backlinks, okay? You can contact me for everything, but please don't say, hello,
No.
sir, I'm selling backlinks.
No backlinks.
No
No
backlinks.
backlinks. Only serious business.
And don't ask me to raise funds for your startup. If someone offers to raise funds for your startup, just remember, if they can do it for you, then they can do it for themselves. And they can do it for themselves, why would they do it for you?
Yes. Oh, very good tip. Very good tip. Awesome. And join Jean-Michel's network. Awesome. Thank you. Subscribe and like the episode.
Thank you.